Right. So, our first review of the day is going to be for The Legend of Korra, Season 4, Book 4. This is called Balance. So, we reviewed all the arcs of all the seasons of The Legend of Korra leading up to this final season. If people remember our review of last season, and if people have seen the last season of Legend of Korra, people remember after she faced off of the Red Lotus gang there, left kind of destroyed in a sense
Mhm.
from them after what they kind of did to her,
Mhm.
poisoned her with this kind of metal in her body, almost killed her. Cora's kind of going through a serious issue,
Mhm.
right now. She had to, all those months of rehab she had to go through trying to get back to her regular self. And then she's kind of struggling with that, struggling
Mhm.
with her ability, struggling with getting back to her normal avatar self.
Mhm.
While she's doing that, you have this new villain that is arising, that is kind of being the new primary bad guy, and that is Kuvera. Kuvera, who is trying to kind of unify the Earth Kingdom after the disastrous rule that was by the last ruler there, the Earth Queen, trying to help rebuild the Earth Kingdom, you know what I mean, from its crime, from its
Mhm.
poverty, and in efforts to do that, she's kind of becoming a dictator, taking
Mhm.
over lands there, and then seeing how she's kind of marching her army, the Earth Army, to all these different places, taking over,
Mhm.
much like what you saw what the Fire Kingdom did in the original Avatar series there. And Kuvera maybe is probably the best of the villains that
Mhm.
the Legend of Korra series has to offer. I think the Legend of Korra series has some good villains.
Mhm.
Some of their ideology is always kind of a little mixed up and a little kind of strange, not really all the way thought out. But you always can somewhat see a reason of why they're doing the things that they're doing. Even last season with the Red Lotus, um, you get it. You can kind of see their kind of reasoning of, hey, no rulers, no, dictators, no monarchy there. But besides for a plan after that, they didn't really have a really good plan after that. And Kuvera seems like, okay, she's making sense a little bit at first of like, hey, the Earth Kingdom is in disarray. I'm helping rebuild it. I'm helping fix it. You do have this other king who's supposed to take over, Prince Wu, who's supposed to be the natural ruler of the Earth Kingdom because it follows the monarchy there. And she's saying, well, obviously that's fucking stupid because look at this guy. This guy's a pussy. Of course he can't take over the Earth Kingdom there. It makes sense for her to do it because she's garnered the love and respect of the people due to her nature of helping all the people of the Earth citizens. So it kind of makes sense there. So yeah. So she's kind of making sense at first of like, yeah, we should eliminate the monarchy system. It should be based on kind of more of a democracy. And obviously
Yeah.
she's done a lot more effort.
Democracy.
Yeah.
Wink.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more efforts there. So yeah, that's kind of the basis we have for this fourth season. So Mike, what are your thoughts on book 4, Balance?
Yeah, hold on, I have a joke. Korra is up against her most dangerous threat yet. Her show being relegated to streaming online. Oh yeah. Yeah, Korra season 4. One of the strongest seasons of Korra. Well, my favorite season is probably 3, between 4 and 1. Like, this is also kind of a mix up because
Mhm.
all these shows are incredibly strong. I mean, all these seasons are relatively pretty strong, all things considered,
Mhm.
despite having some mixed reception among the fans. Corvia, like a very effective villain. We do see Korra on her own the most. This is probably the most status quo change to the show, and the show's actually a time skip
Mhm.
from when we last saw Korra, who was critically injured by the Red Lotus and poisoned. And like even after her recovery, she goes out on her own, and like now she has to feel like not only regaining her strength, but she has to regain her confidence as well. And she, and we see a lot of her more personal, like mental struggle, as opposed to just like having to go up against like a bad guy or a physical guy. Uh, which is a threat we haven't really seen in the show from a main character. Because Aang's like always just like, oh, we gotta beat this, I gotta learn this. Korra, it was mostly, oh, I gotta defeat these guys. But this is like, I say half of the threat of the show is like her dealing with uh, her own mental
Mhm.
weakness as well, and it's yeah, pretty good. Love seeing all the characters in the different positions, and like a lot of characters now are working for the Nazis. Bowling kind of becomes a lot less likable in this season of just like them trying to play him off as like the himbo dumb guy, but it's like it's a lot less cute when he's obviously working for the obviously evil lady that has
Yeah,
been
but
sending people to camps.
yeah, but it is kind of this thing where Bolin, who is like very much the most I think the most naive character on
Yeah.
the show, at least to an extent, and he got seduced by a very charismatic
Yeah.
leader in Kuvira.
Yeah, maybe, but at this
Which
point, like he
happens.
is also like 20, 21, and that's also another neat thing in Korra. Like all these characters are adults at this point, and they're all in their different roles. Yeah, Mako got the brunt end of like the fan hate, and like the writers reduced him to being the bodyguard to a comedic character of Prince Wu. I was wondering if he had a last name, but yeah, a really solid season. Korra doesn't. What's as opposed to this, as opposed to like all the other shows of Korra is like dealing with her own stuff for most of the time, while uh, the villain is doing her own thing, and so we get to a lot more. We get to see a lot more of like the villain's progress of her plan and such like that. Uh, and yeah, we get some maybe the best politics or like best written politics of the series with because Avatar had the benefit of being like definitely a more explicit kids show, where it's like politics are more of a background thing and
Yeah.
incredibly vague
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah, and all the characters that we follow in The Last Airbender, all of them were so far removed
Yeah.
from the intricacies of the politics of the world.
Yeah.
It was more
It's a
of seeing
JRPG
the-
plot,
it's
like not even a
seeing the
disrespect.
it's seeing the like effects way out into the
Mhm.
world of these
Yeah.
politics versus this show where we're in the room where it happens.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like a JRPG in the original Avatar. Of like, yeah, you see like some of the people being affected by it, but it's like for the most part, the plot's just there's an evil emperor, we need to take him down. But we also see stuff of like the council like talking about like the flaws of like the monarchies and stuff like that. Of like even just like this probably shouldn't be a thing, because even before they're like Prince Ru just gives up his thing, gives up his title. The president of Republic City says Prince Wu's not going to make any real decisions. He's basically just a puppet, which is some holy shit. I did not expect to hear this from a kid's show. Kind of, yeah.
And we look at where the characters are now. You mentioned there's a 3-year time skip between season 3 and now. So like characters are fully more into adulthood now that you kind of see. You see Korra is trying to. We mentioned her. She's trying to regain her confidence after what happened to her. She's having these hallucinations, visions of her, possessed avatar self there, where she was poisoned from last season. This season, not really. We talk about Team Avatar. Not a lot of Tenzin. I feel like this season, more of his kids really get more of the spotlight.
His kids are weirdly in this, like a lot. Like, and the air acolytes are kind of like the actual Team Avatar in this.
Like you see a lot more like with the air acolytes, like Opal, who's the daughter of what's her name? Suyin.
Yeah, Suyin.
Suyin, yeah, who's the daughter there. You see Kai, you see more with Mako.
You get a fair amount of Lin, Suin's sister, who's the head of police chief.
Lin. But yeah, I feel like Tenzin, I don't think you get a lot. I think this is probably the least amount of him at all the seasons. But now that his daughter she's an air master now, airbending master, so she has some tattoos there. So you get a lot more with the kids there. You mentioned Mako. You mentioned he's kind of like the bodyguard to the prince now. So that's kind of his role. You mentioned Asami. Asami's trying to a little bit do more with like reconnecting with her father, who's been in prison now, who's turned into he looks like Hayao Miyazaki now.
I bet.
He kind of looks a little bit like him now. So that's Asami. Bolin is now working for an evil dictator for a little bit through half the season.
As you do.
Same with Greta does fit him more with Varric.
You have Eric, who's building he builds all the kind of weapons and tech for Kuvara at first there with the Earth Kingdom, And again, it makes sense why you would join up with her. I mean, she's the one that's doing all this stuff of helping people, thinking providing resources and
Mhm.
helping the Earth Kingdom. And he saw firsthand Bolin of like what it was like, when the Queen was
Mhm.
ruling with all the poverty, with all the crime there, of kind of what was going on. So it makes a little bit of sense there. It's like, hey, I'm making a difference. I'm making a
Mhm.
change. Um, and you think like, well, he's a little oblivious, but hey, people like that in real life who, do join things and are oblivious to all the bad things that, this ruler can do. And
Bolin, right?
yeah, Bolin, yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Varric. I'm like, I don't think that because he was selling weapons too for
Yeah.
the south and northern tribes. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
man was stoking the fires of war between the water tribes.
Yeah.
Or
And
or more accurately, making Zhu Li do it.
oh yeah.
and Kuvera, who is voiced by Zelda Williams, who's the
Robin
daughter
Williams'
of
daughter.
Robin
Mhm.
Williams there. What do you think about Kuvera? Do you think she is the best villain?
Oh man, she's up there. We do get maybe this might be the villain we get the most screen time of.
Mhm.
I would have to actually look back because it's probably between her and Zahir. But yeah, Kavira, we do see a lot more of her. We do get to see her as like an actual politician, like delegate and stuff like that.
Mhm.
We see her relationship with Batu Jr. And she's actually the only villain in Korra that's introduced in the season prior.
Mhm.
Between the fight, oh, this fight was amazing. Between Suin
Suyi.
and Kavira. I will say, well, I do think it is a weaker show overall. I think the fights in Korra,
Mhm.
for the most part, are better. Uh, they're allowed to be like a lot more creative and darker, especially with like how bending and technology has progressed to a level.
Yeah, and even something with the first season, how you have sports like
Yeah.
pro bending,
Mhm.
where all the techniques from that are integrated into the fighting,
Yeah.
and it's like kind of like just to make a comparison, how Captain America's fighting style evolved in the MCU, where
Mhm.
the first Avenger, he's more like rock 'em, sock 'em, stick 'em up boxer, and then he's like a full mixed martial artist in later
Mhm.
movies, and how different styles of bending influence each
Yeah.
other. Like even in this move, it looks more like a water bending move
Mhm.
that Kavir is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
especially
her.
with how fluid metal bending is. She's the
Mhm.
first male bending villain
Mhm.
in the show. I'm trying to think to the comics. I don't think there was one.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, very solid villain, especially with her dynamic with Korra for the most part. And we previously talked about the Red Lotus and how at the end, when like
Mhm.
their ideology is revealed, it kind of comes a bit muddled, mainly in the last episode. Well, two things about that. Some people were mad about like Curvia and Korra, like Korra saying "I see you" and me and stuff like that. That's not the
Mhm.
show like saying they're the same or Kavira has a point. It's Korra saying like I get it, like I get all the
Yeah,
pressure and stuff like
it's
that.
like it's like at this point, because she's gone through everything with Amon, with losing her
Mhm.
connection to Rava, with being poisoned. She sees all that pressure, and so much of what I think makes Korra such a fascinating character is that she's an avatar
Mhm.
who is this is the first time we see her as the avatar as a public figure, and we see all the pressure and expectations that come with that, and we see how that wears on a person with Korra, especially in the early parts of this season.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also interesting in this is that Zahir, I like that they didn't kill Zahir or anything like
Mhm.
that, and we do get to see it, and they kind of like walk back him a bit of like him saying like what I did was stupid, like I didn't know what I was doing at the very end, uh, and kind of like he kind of ends up like getting humbled and like actually aids Korra, uh, with kind of helping her kind of get over the emotional pass.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, pretty like solid stuff throughout the most part. I will say the comics do kind of make Kavira a bit weaker.
Mhm.
They're a bit way too sympathetic with her because virtually she just gets house arrested. Like she ends up living with Suin, her adoptive mother, at the end of it after she helps defend Republic City from a few uh, not mutated, but like spirit infested bandits and like mafia members. Uh, yeah, and we do also get like a lot of cool like history of like Republic City and like lore about that never get really got that upon in the show. It's in the comics, but like you don't really get that. But like Corvira is like is kind of like, you know, and you do see this in real life with like places like China, like after the invasion of Japan, or Korea after Japan, or like Germany after World War II, of like certain land placements were given back to like Japan, but like it's still technically like, you know, Chinese and or Korean land, and like they beef about it. Same with like Germany. It's like, yeah, of course, like Korea would be upset about that, like want to make a pass. It's also like it's already like a settlement area. It's like it would be really hard to get them out of there with Republic City, because it has been like over 100 years. But it's like, yeah, and you know, you can talk about like the politics of it, and I would say it does probably do it better than The Promise, all things considered. I will say though, probably the weakest part of the season is the original Team Avatar, besides Korra, is that despite this kind of being the final season, most of them don't really get that many big moments or that much time together, especially times like Asami is super guilty of this. Of like, there are like, because this is also the season where Asami and Korra like get together at the very end,
and it the way it's presented, it isn't really an element that is set up. It just kind of happens in the final episode, and so much of Asami's arc was reconciling with her father, which I wish a little bit more time was devoted to that, especially because so much of this show is about an analysis of what a post-war world looks like, and how lines are drawn between different sides, and, you know, reconciling what happens after.
Yeah. What's especially weird about Asami and stuff like that, and like you, of course, you can mention the censors of like, well, they couldn't say "I love you" in like season, like episode 4 of like the middle season of like the last season. But the thing is, there are like several moments where it's like, oh, we need someone to go find Korra, and stuff like that. Up until like this point, the closest Asami's got to a one-on-one with Korra was with her, Mako, and Prince Wu all in the same room together. But there's like moments of like tensions, like, oh, Korra's missing, we need someone to find her, and there's Opal, Asami, and his kids in the room, and he sends just the air acolytes. It's like, Asami can like fly a plane and a blimp and a car and a motorcycle, and you don't send her. I do think that's a weak part, but like at the same time, I've been pretty vocal about this, but I don't think any of the romances of the main characters in Avatar are really that well written. So I don't think I should like extra criticize Korrasami.
If anything, for me at least, the only like romance or love triangle that actually worked was in the first season, with the love triangle between Mako, Asami, and Korra. That was like, if it came close to working, this was it. And even to an extent with Bolin, and I think he ends up with
Are you talking about Opal or one of the twins from the season 2?
No, with Opal, with Bolin and Opal. That romance worked so much better than any of Korra's love interests.
I kind of feel like Korra has more chemistry with Opal than in season 3 and 4. It's like, it's also like in season 4, it's like, yeah, she spends a weird amount of time with Opal. It's like they kind of have chemistry. It's like, okay, maybe like this would probably work out better as a couple.
You didn't like the relation between the Julie and
Varric? That's kind of weird. Yeah.
James Caan and Meg Gyllenhaal and
Secretary. I love James Caan, but
and I love John Michael Higgins and his performance as Varric.
Of course, yeah. That voice actor is just like perfect, but it's also one of those things of like, even the show kind of feels like they rushed. Even it feels like the show kind of gets that rushed Varric's development a bit of like Varric's like. Lately, I've just been having these thoughts in my head that have been telling me what's right and what's wrong. It's like, you are selling weapons to fund the Civil War so you can make a profit. It's like, where did this come from?
You were funding the Civil War, and what's worse, creating propaganda. So
yeah, basically, yeah, he
calm down a little bit.
Him and Julie are a bit more of a. They're more of like a.
It's kind of like an odd couple pairing.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's kind of like it's a more slightly rushed, like less, of course, because there's only like 3 seasons. I can't blame too much, and they're side characters, but it's like a more rushed version of like Tony Stark and Pepper Potts as a good comparison. where we
Okay.
see more of like Tony's like personal growth and his all the shit he goes through. And even to an extent, you could say Asami is kind of like the Tony Stark of this, but like more rushed as well, and just like to the side. But it's like, yeah, it's unfortunate because Korra is such a strong character herself.
Mhm.
In a lot of respects, I think she probably could carry a whole season by herself. In a lot of ways, she does for this, because she is pretty much alone up until she meets old Toph in this.
Yeah. So that's one of the characters we get to see. So we've pretty much, at the start of the season, or the series, we saw
Right.
pretty much all what happened to. We know what happened to the old Avatar
Mhm.
gang, but we hadn't seen Toph. We
Mhm.
know that
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
Aang passed away. We know
yeah.
that.
Aang passed away. Sokka, and presumably Suki passed away. Katara's chilling in the South
Mhm.
Pole. The only one we had, Zuko, is retired as the Fire Lord and is still kicking. But the only one we hadn't seen was Toph.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, even she was so stubborn, even death couldn't get her.
Well, she is also the youngest of the group because Zuko's like in his 80s. Toph is like, I think she might be in her late 70s.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and yeah, she's here. And kind of a cute cameo at first, but like she kind of becomes like a maybe a less like. Actually, I really like also like the cop history with Toph and like her middle
Mhm.
bending history and stuff like that. Like kind of the more Toph was a flawed mother and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like a lot more so than Aang. Like Toph was pretty much
Mhm.
a bad mother, but
Yeah, it's like I never read it as Aang being a bad
no,
parent.
he was a
It's
flawed
just
dad.
he was a flawed bad who loved both of his kids and gave them, the best parenting he was in his
Mhm.
that was in his ability. He just, favored Tenzin because he
Ooh.
is the only other airbender,
Yeah.
which he has a responsibility beyond just being
Mhm.
a parent.
Yeah,
With Toph,
kind of a bad mom.
yeah, she got no excuse. She was a bad parent.
Yeah, as opposed to like her parents who like gave her no freedom. She gave her kids all the freedom they wanted, but it just led to them like one of them just doing whatever and like a kind of family being split.
Mhm.
Link gets some interesting drama in this with Toph and like uh, her and Sue saving her sister Suin from Corvira after they attempted to assassinate her in her sleep.
This is a good scene right
Yeah.
here. With
Mhm.
Lynn, I can feel your enraged breathing from here. Just say what you have to say and let's get it over with.
Just get it over with? Yeah, let's not linger on the fact that I grew up without a dad. No need to get all touchy-feely about it. Just one of those things, right?
Hey, I forgave you for all your garbage a long time ago, and Sue and I worked things out. You're the only one who wants to hold on to this family drama nonsense for the rest of your life.
Forgave me for what? And not knowing my dad is nonsense to you? It was pretty important to me, and until now you would never even discuss it. You know, after Sue and I patched things up, I thought, maybe I should try to reach out to Mom. But now that we're together again, I remember why we stopped talking. You'll make me furious, and you don't even know why. And when I tell you, you don't care. Once we save Sue, you and I are finished.
If that's your decision and it makes you happy, then fine.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, so there was some trouble there. I don't think Toph was, even if she admits, like, yeah, I wasn't the best
Yeah.
parent there. I kind of messed up there with a lot of things, because she has two children, not the same father.
No.
So it's her half sister Suyin there.
Yeah, one that is heavily implied to be Sokka's daughter.
Yeah. There's also in the comics there is like right after Zuko's mom is like that thing is settled, we do meet like out of nowhere this inventor guy just comes by and is just like a fanboy of Toph, and him and Toph like hit off very quickly. And like it does kind of feel like they never like confirm it, but it does feel like a lot like the writers like wiggling their eyebrows, being like, could this be Lynn's biological father? Who knows?
Mm. How did you like Toph coming back?
Honestly, I'm not sure if this is a controversial take, but I honestly like her more as a flashback character. I kind of found her as just like a bit kind of a fan servicey for the things, and like I really like all the details we get with like kind of the like past stuff of like her as like a police officer and her the like kind of the flaws of like Republic City and seeing more of like her stuff as her mom. The fact that she's even wearing the exact same outfit from when she was like 11. Was she even 11 at that point?
I think she was like 12. She
12?
was Aang's age.
Well, yeah, she
when,
was like a
she
year
was
younger.
18.
Wow, Aang's
Yeah.
also like, yeah. People forget how young they are at the in Avatar. I think kind of. I'm trying to think of who's the best returning member of Team Avatar from Korra in this, because there's Zuko, there's Katara, and there's Toph.
And I guess if you want to count Aang, I think Aang comes. Baby.
Yeah, but
Technically, yeah.
yeah.
As far as like characters that contribute to the main arc of the season, I would say Toph, because she comes to Korra when she is at her crisis of faith, and she like helps push her along further into that. She like furthers an arc, and I'm not a fan of the term fan service when it comes to bringing back characters from previous stories when they do actually contribute to the plot and to characters' arcs within that piece of media. It's why I'm like, I really like Spider-Man No Way Home, and I hate The Flash.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen The Flash. I thought you were talking about the kid.
Movie.
What's his name? The Indian kid who was in Willow.
I didn't see Willow. So
He plays Flash in the MCU.
In the MCU. You mean?
Tony Revolori.
Yeah, he plays Flash in that. He was in Willow. So
Okay.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
I guess I
but
didn't
yeah,
see it.
but overall, and I'm kind of in between of the mecha stuff, because I actually like kind of the more 10 to 20 foot size mechas, because it does make sense, because Avatar originally had a very steampunk vibe, and if you look at the concept art, it was going to be like close to like borderline like cyberpunk, but with this mecha is like very large, and like it is the thing of like, of course we're all here for the animators and stuff like that, but like it's very noticeable. Like the CGI is a lot more noticeable than the smaller mechas, or like even the buildings that are like CGI. But
and that's a huge part of that is because the budget of this flashed to a ridiculous degree.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like to deal with a show of like, hey, your show's on TV, now it's on the internet. But
the action, like you said, is really impressive. I mean, you see this and the way it's done here.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same complaints I have with Invincible. It's like when they are really conserving the budget, you really notice. But when they are in those action set pieces, okay, this is where the money went, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like with the size and like the proportions of it, obviously this is a fantasy world, but it does kind of feel like the mecha should just tip over at one point for me. I do really like the moving mechas that we get in season 1, and we kind of get some updated ones here in season 4, where they're a lot like more compact and like viable, like dangerous, and they shoot like tasers and stuff. Well, the original shot tasers, but it's like Zhu has one. I do really like, even though I don't think the characters had tons too, I do really like stuff like Mako's fight inside the mecha. I actually thought he was gonna die, or like get like severely crippled with the way he was like talking to Bulin at the very end of like, I know how to like stop the core, but it's super dangerous. I need you to go away. He's like, come back alive. I thought that explosion was just gonna kill him. And like, if you're gonna kill Mako, like do it in the finale where Nick's sensors can't stop you. But the fight between Korra and Korra and the mecha was really cool. We also get some more hand-to-hand combat with Korra in that. She does a hurricane on Korra, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean the battle scenes, like you said, I mean, I think overall as a show, it's not as good as Avatar: Last Airbender, but the fight scenes are very impressive, and when they do, especially Kuvera, I mean, being the really master of metal bending that she is, it's impressive to see her fight Korra, and especially as a callback to what happened earlier in the season when they fought in front of everybody. It's a good callback to that. They face off again.
Yeah, it's a redemption arc for Korra, because when they first fought, Korra was not in any place to fight her.
Yeah. Also, really cool detail, like design detail of like Kavira's armory, especially like even her scientists that can't bend. They have the metal plates on her, and like she does this and just like kind of like does a impromptu like Darth Vader like force choke with metal bending. Like that's a very creative use of like the uniforms.
Yeah, and even in this, just seeing how they're using the environment, seeing Korra is the first avatar that can metal bend, how she uses that as well.
MMA move right there.
Oh yeah.
I kind of see that.
And she learned spear bending in this as well. Now, did she learn that in season 2?
She learned it in season, I think the last season. I think.
Okay,
like energy, or was
when
it
she learned
energy?
spear bending.
They're technically at the same. They're the same thing. Energy bending and spear bending. No, she learned it in season 2. I remember now. She tries to use it in season 3 at the very start and doesn't work out. But yeah, she uses it to defeat the giant mecha and all this stuff. And like, there's a huge explosion. Like at the end, despite everything that's happened and like Korra's having that celebration, Korra's like off to the side. Tenzin like comes to her and says like, "Look, in your lifetime, you've done more change than like even Aang did. Like, in under just like a few years, which is like something I don't think a lot of fans really get. Because of course, Aang with his whole team stopped the 100-year war, but Korra, like, she brought back airbenders, kind of not intentionally, but
she brought back the airbenders. She
spirits.
Brought the spirits into the world.
Yeah.
She brought democracy to the Earth Kingdom.
Yeah, and there is like discussion of like the world needs the avatars. Like, does it really? Because of like, think about like after the avatar dies, there's like the avatar's just kind of there to like have balance. But like after the avatar dies, there's like a 16-year period of like where the world keeps on going. Toph kind of has that speech with Korra of like the avatar isn't really needed that much because like a new wave will come in, but like Korra's done a lot of stuff other than just like just keep the peace. Like she's actually like done the status quo change that's we don't really see in the Avatar. The most you see in the Avatar, even kind of the comics, is the promise thing where Aang and Zuko make Republic City. So, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you have that moment, the final episode, they're celebrating the victory. And then you have it where Asami and Korra, walk off together there. I remember first watching this and thinking, oh, this kind of came out of nowhere. I remember I was like, I was like, when I first, I was like, wait, what? like, they're a couple? Like, I don't know. Just when I first watched this was like came out of nowhere to me. Is that the case with you when you first watched it there?
I almost didn't kind of get there were a couple originally. Actually, originally, when I started there were a couple, I saw a thing on like on my phone like during like 2014, 2016, something like that.
Yeah,
I thought like, oh, they kiss at the end because I saw like really good fan art of them kissing at the spirit portal, but you never really get that in the show. People were like, well, Nickelodeon censors and all this stuff, and like that's true, but at the same time, it is the last episode of the last season, and they're like, we're not going to get another season after this. But yeah, I will say both a praise and like kind of a criticism of it is like, one praise is that like there's a lot of stuff that of restraints they had, and like Korosami did make room for like more LGBT like Q couples and stuff like that, and like inspired better written queer romances in Western media. But I'm not sure if this was the first one to do it, but like I think this might have kicked off a weird trend in Western animation of like, oh, we're gonna have a queer couple in our cartoon fantasy. It's like, okay, that's cool. Who's it gonna be? It's like, oh, it's just 2 women. Like, it's always women. That's not like even like that much. It's just a weird pattern of like this Steven Universe, Arcane, Owl House, what else? Harley Quinn,
Has Been Hotel.
It's like, yeah, they're kind of all like female driven, but it's like that's great, but it's also like, I don't know, get some dudes in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. More of that they're kind of in fantasy shows.
Yeah. Even oh god, even in the book, it's actually written better, but it's like it's by a different author. But Kyoshi and Lee, is that her name? Lynn?
I don't know. I never read the.
It's been a
Kyoshi
while
books.
since I've read the book, but Kyoshi does date a firebending girl at one
Okay.
point during the start, and they do have a pretty good romance, all things considered. But it's also like, yeah, Kyoshi was bisexual, but like the romance you're gonna see is between like her and a woman. It's like, like I don't know. Avatar is also kind of victim of like most of the like main queer characters are women. It's like that's not a problem. It's also just like I don't know, like have a few dudes in there or like dating each other.
Yeah. And they do so in this episode, do you have a favorite episode from this season? They do kind of a recap episode a little bit of like
Oh yeah,
about the romance. They kind of get you
Hmm.
caught up there. They do that. Do
I
you have a favorite episode this?
I really like the fight between Korra and Corvira, where they have a one-on-one match. The first one, that's really cool. But yeah, I say this season has a lot of pretty solid episodes, especially the ones of Korra on her own, which was episode 2 or 3. It was like, yeah, we didn't see Korra for a long time. It's like, oh, we get to see what Korra's doing, and it's like she's just not doing good.
Yeah. She's losing basic fights and
Yeah, to
underground.
Earthbenders.
Yeah. There.
Yeah, it's like, just dealing with the PTSD of the events of last season.
That Earthbender cage fighter should have been Korra's girlfriend.
Yeah. So you said you've read the kind of material, the comics. So what kind of happens to the other relations? Do Opal and Bolin stay together?
They stay together. Well, you see it in the show, but Varric and what's her name?
Julie.
Julie, yeah, they get married. Mako's just kind of in the background for a lot of it. There is a side comic that kind of like goes more to like Mako and Bolin's relationship as brothers and like the past stuff. Because a mob boss does like rise up because of like the spirits infesting Republic City. A chi blocker kind of becomes a mob boss, and he's like half dragon, half man. And Korra, to their credit, Korra and Asami do kiss in the comics. During the climactic fight when there's a bunch of poisonous gas in the air, Korra creates like an air bubble around their head, and Korra like kisses Asami because she's been poisoned. It's like, here, have some of my air and stuff like that. Like that's like the big moments. Stuff of not Lin. Corvira goes on trial, and that kind of ends a bit weirdly, but like at the same time, kind of accurate. To like, yeah, a lot of these, there's a good amount of like war criminals that's like, okay, they kind of get like a slap with the wrist. Like she basically gets like the Nuremberg trial or like the Tokyo trial or stuff like that. And to be fair, Iroh is pretty much that. Like we all love Iroh, but at the same time, it's like you are doing like basically like the non-king massacre, and you spend the rest of your days in a tea shop in the Earth Kingdom, dude.
Yeah. He goes to spirit heaven.
Spirit heaven.
Yeah, he's in spirit, hanging out with the spirits. Yeah. How long do Korra and Asami spend in the spirit world?
I'm trying to think.
Like they go on vacation, honeymoon.
Yeah, not that long, all things considered, because like shit happens in Republic City, and like, okay, we have to go back. So maybe a few months at most.
Okay, it's a good honeymoon.
Yeah.
Good honeymoon time. Yeah. And they fuck up Republic City. they destroy that city, man.
Oh
Like-
god, yeah.
Yeah, they Man of Steel this city.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
technically, season 3, Korra's even like fucking banned for the city, which is
mean,
interesting.
So much stuff has happened in that city. The spirit realm
Yeah.
came over that city. Then the whole mech destroyed the city.
Yeah,
I mean,
boy.
So much has happened to that
Mhm.
city. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, final thoughts and rating for Legend of Korra season 4.
Yeah,
balance.
Korra season 4 is a flawed show, but this is it's a flawed show that always has like incredibly solid moments. And while I do not begrudge people for not liking it as much as Avatar or being like I could not get into it, I personally really like the show. I like the risk it take. I like the development with the main lead. I like a lot of the villains. I give the show a stream it.
Agreement. Okay. Yeah, I don't think the show is as good as Avatar Last Airbender, but that's tough. I mean, Avatar
Yeah.
Last Airbender is one of the
Yeah,
greatest.
it's like, how do you follow one of the greatest animated shows?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where I think the first book of the show, I think, was the strongest one. I thought that
Mm,
that
that's fair.
was the most well thought out, and it almost feels like it was a show that was never meant to continue afterwards.
Well, they were always very scared of like not knowing if they were going to get another season or not.
But as it is, I think the show kind of had a rocky second season, but seasons 3 and 4 of this, I really like it. In at its worst, it is like on the level of some of the weaker episodes of Avatar.
Yeah.
But at its best, for me at least, book 3 and 4 are right up there with some of the best of The Last Airbender. I like the risks that the show take. I like the way the animation jumped up in quality, the way that that fights are animated, and that this is an animated show that came out that ended in 2014 that was willing to go into these very dark places, into these looks about what trauma does to people, what a world under actual anarchy looks like, how people even with the best of intentions do end up following a dictator like Kavira.
Yeah, it's like it's also not like something you saw that much, especially like kind of cartoons at the time with a female character. It was like, Korra gets like she gets dogged around a lot of the time.
Yeah, she takes some lickings. That's for sure. And gets back up. So I don't think it's as good as there, but I mean, you're dealing with one of the greatest animated shows, or just one of the greatest shows, period. There, so it's hard to follow up to that. But I think this has some good concepts, some good ideas each season, some good villains. I just don't think they always execute them well in terms of a lot of some of the political stuff there. I think that's kind of half baked, the way they kind of play that out. Some things don't even come back. Like we mentioned, the first season of the whole discrepancy between non-benders and benders, like that doesn't really make a way back in the series there. So it's like kind of some things they dropped the ball there on. But the animation, I think, is really great. I think that we mentioned the action sequences are really great. I think even Korra as a character, I know some people are a little bit divided. I think Korra is a great avatar. I think what they do with Korra and her journey is really good, and it being she's not just Aang again.
It's like the worst mistake the show could have made is just make Korra Aang again.
Yeah, and people are like, "Oh, the mistakes of like the avatars." Like, if you look into the avatars' history, it's like a lot of the avatars are there to kind of clean up the past avatars' mistakes, like with the comics and the books.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's like it's like taking a little bit of the rose-colored glasses off when it comes to the Avatar, because while Aang, and to an extent in the show, so much of it like kind of took the words of Avatar Roku as gospel, that dude had it easy as the Avatar.
Yeah. It's also like Korra's actually like, oh, let's see what an avatar actually does, like for the most part, when there's not like 100-year war going on or something.
Yeah, it's like living in day-to-day society, and all of these like different conflicts that come up is like seeing the avatar be more of a political figure, more of a figure of propaganda. Is like when there is these like wars between nations, where is the line of loyalty drawn with the avatar? It's like, do you back your nation, or do you serve to restore balance?
Yeah. I do like Korra as the Avatar. I do like her journey, which kind of went through her different trials and tribulations there. For me, I would give it a tune in. I mean, I think we already discussed the original Avatar series. I'd kind of give that more peak, more this is cinema. But I give Legend of Korra, I think, a tune in for me, for sure. I mean, it was good going back and watching this and refreshing it up again on it. You gave it a stream it, and I gave it a tune in for the Legend of Korra. Book 4, Balance.